Morning, welcome to Saturday morning meditation. A bit later than usual. Morning Lisa, morning Thomas. I decided that I really did need a good lie-in this morning. I've been not sleeping very much at all for about a month now. I haven't needed to, but last night I did sleep more, so I needed to, and moving house is quite a big deal, so now I'm moved, I think my energy's starting to settle a bit more, and I just needed a lie-in, so I took a bit of extra time this morning, and from today, starting tomorrow, I'll be back at 7 a.m. or 7:30. I'll aim for 7. Morning Lisa. If you're just joining us, just say hi and where you're tuning in from. It's always nice to know where everybody's coming from. So I'm going to share again a few things with you today. And thank you for your lovely comments on yesterday's morning meditation, Thomas. I really appreciated that. So we're going to start with Opening Doors Within by Eileen Caddy, and Eileen was the founder of the Findhorn spiritual community in Scotland, and this lovely book has every date for the year in it. So I'm going to read today's date. And also want to welcome you all to this beautiful new day. No matter how it might look outside, it is a beautiful new day, and it is a miracle, and we are very blessed to be waking up this morning and being here to enjoy this experience. So always seek the best, always expect the best, and never at any time be content with second best. It may be difficult for you, especially at times when you think you are scraping the bottom of the barrel. Then you have to raise your consciousness, and never for 1 second think lack, but think abundance. See abundance, and give thanks for my infinite and limitless supply. Why are you content to accept second best, when the very best is waiting for you to accept it, waiting to bless you? When you can think big, your whole life and living will expand within and around you. Remember, it all starts from within. It all starts with you. Start right now to readjust your thinking. Become reorientated. Look within. Let it gradually work from within like yeast in a lump of dough. Never fail to recognize my hand in everything, and give thanks. Give constant thanks. Take nothing for granted, but realize how blessed you are. I'm going to read that again for those that have just tuned in. Always seek the best, always expect the best, and never at any time be content with second best. It may be difficult for you, especially at times when you think you are scraping the bottom of the barrel. Then you have to raise your consciousness, and never for 1 second think lack, but think abundance. See abundance, and give thanks for my infinite and limitless supply. I've got my son here who's just been outside in the garden. Bless him. Why are you content to accept second best when the very best is waiting for you to accept it, waiting to bless you? When you can think big, your whole life and living will expand within and around you. Remember, it all starts from within, and it all starts with you. Start right now to readjust your thinking. Become reorientated from within, and let it gradually work from within like yeast in a lump of dough. Never fail to recognise my hand in everything and give constant thanks. Take nothing for granted, but realise how blessed you are. Something that I found very, very powerful that I started to do, and I haven't done recently actually, but was to write a gratitude journal, or write things that I was grateful for. And I started it a few years ago, and it really transformed things. Not only the way that I was looking at things, but actually the way that everything was showing up as well. It's like we have so much to be grateful for. We are so blessed, if only we can see it. And the mind is very good at clouding what is here, what the abundance that we have around us, the limitless magic that's here in every moment. I mean, I'm looking out this window, I'm in my little conservatory, and there's beautiful plants everywhere, and it's nature, it's lush, it's abundant, it never competes with, plants don't compete with each other, trees don't compete with each other. They just are, they just blossom, they just bloom, or maybe they don't even have any flowers, but they are what they are, and they are beautiful, and they don't try to become anything other than what they are. So they are being, they're a wonderful example of being, and everything is happening. They experience all weathers, all climates, and it doesn't damage them. Fundamentally, it doesn't damage them. And even if they die back, I had some plants that look like they've died, and they don't. As soon as the sun comes out, as soon as the weather changes, as soon as it warms up, they come back to life. So they're hibernating. They're in this state of in-betweenness. So they're not ready to bloom and to blossom and for us to see. But under the surface, there's all this growth happening, this fine attunement happening. And this is what's happening with all of us. We are inside, no matter how we look. We're growing, we're learning, we're expanding, we're shifting. Our DNA is changing with every thought that we have. The way we think and feel about things is affecting our experience, always, in every moment. And we never stop growing. There isn't a place that we reach that is the final place. Everything is happening here now, and it doesn't end. Everything is happening for us, for our growth, for our expansion, to bring us home, to bring us to the truth. Everything, all our relationships, all our experiences, we have to be open to seeing that. But it continues until we get it, until we start to see, until our eyes are opened. And the illusions start to fade, and even then we can fall into them. Because we're human. We can know that this world is an illusion, we can know, but at the same time it's a part of our experience, and we're not separate from it. I'm going to read some more of 40 verses on reality that I spoke about yesterday by Ramana Maharshi. And I'll show you his lovely picture again. It's very beautiful, so full of presence. see if I can find where I finished reading yesterday. In whatever name and form, the nameless and formless is worshipped. Therein lies the path of its realization. Realizing one's truth as the truth of that reality and merging into it is true realization. All roads lead to Rome. All sincere worship comes from the heart and leads to the formless God in the heart. To believe that one's reality is the same as God's is an important step towards the realization of Him as pure consciousness and the process of merging into Him. How many millions of innocent human beings would have been spared the horror of religious persecutions throughout the centuries in the name of God? And how many wars would have been prevented had this truth been accepted as the one truth underlying all religions, the basic world faith? The dyads and the triads rest on the basic one, inquiry about that one in the mind. They will disappear. Those who see thus are the seers of truth. They remain unruffled. Dyads are the pairs of opposites, knowledge and ignorance, light and darkness, happiness and misery, birth and death, etc. The triad is the triple principle of seeing, seer and sight, object, subject, and the perception of the former by the latter. As all the numbers stand on and originate from the first number, so are the dyads and triads based on, arising from and of the same nature as the one seer, the perceiving mind. He who realizes the world as such retains a uniform serenity in all conditions of life. Knowledge and ignorance are interrelated. The one does not exist without the other. Inquiring to whom is that knowledge and that ignorance, and arriving at their root cause, the self, is true knowledge. Morning, Ines. If you just joined, say hi and where you're tuning in from. And I'm reading from 40 Verses on Reality by Ramana Maharshi. To speak of ignorance is to admit its opposite, knowledge, and vice versa. Until we become aware of an object, we remain ignorant of its existence. To learn a lesson is to admit our previous ignorance of its content. Knowledge is thus the light which clears away the darkness of ignorance. But knowledge and ignorance which pertain to eternal objects are mere modes of thought. They come and go and are therefore of no consequence in the search for truth. What is of consequence is the knower, who is fixed, changeless, also called the first principle, because he is efficient, causeless, the eternal thinker who precedes and survives all his thoughts, the basic one. It is not ignorance to know all, but the all-knowing self. Is it not ignorance to know all, but the all-knowing self? When the latter, the subterraneum of both knowledge and ignorance, is known, knowledge and ignorance themselves both disappear. It is, of course, foolish to know about everything in the world and remain ignorant of one's own self. Knowledge of the perishable, the universe and all its contents perishes with the body and cannot be transferred to another body. Perhaps, except perhaps as tendencies or abilities in the perishable too, which may not have any spiritual value in a future life. The imperishable alone endures and gives imperishable satisfaction, and this lies wholly within ourselves, who are the source and ground of both knowledge and ignorance. that is, of all experience, whatever. True knowledge is neither knowledge nor ignorance. Objective knowledge is not true knowledge, because the self is self-effulgent, having no second to know or be known. It is supreme knowledge, not empty nothingness. Morning Joe. This continues the theme of verses 10 and 11. We have seen that objective knowledge is knowledge of the perishable, the apparent, the non-existent, the unreal. Self-awareness is true knowledge because it is absolute, changeless, non-dual, ever pure, thought-free. This purity is not emptiness because of the lack of perceivable objects in it, but the ever-shining plenum of awareness being, chit, sat. The self alone is knowledge, is truth. Knowledge of the diversity is ignorance, is false knowledge. Yet ignorance is not apart from the self, which is knowledge. Are the ornaments different from the gold, which is real? So the world, with all its multiplicity of shapes, colours, smells, tastes, and so forth, is nothing but pure consciousness in substance, like variously shaped jewellery, which is nothing but gold. To perceive shapes, colours, smells, alike as different from one another is ignorance, is illusion, but to see them as the single substance out of which they are made, the pure mind, is true knowledge. Yet ignorance is not apart from the self, because all experience as thoughts come from the self and are witnessed by it. The I existing, you and he also exist. If by investigating the truth of the I ceases, you and he will also cease and will shine as the one. This is the nature state of one's being. You and he are the world. It stands and falls with the I or ego which constructs it. Realizing one's being is realizing the whole world to be the same effulgent being, the one. The state of being is experienced by the self, realized man in the waking state consciously, and by all men in dreamless sleep. In dreamless sleep, sushupti, the I, like everything else, disappears, and one remains in one's naive state, in the true I, but generally without retaining memory of his condition on awakening. On the present, the past and the future stand. They too are the present in their times. Thus the present alone exists. Ignoring the past and seeking to know the past and the future is like trying to count without the initial unit. The present is always, for even the past was the present in its time, and so also will the future be the present in its time. Whatever happens, therefore, happens only in the present. When Methuselah was born, he was born in the present, and when he died after 9 or 10 centuries, he also died in the present, despite the latter date. Similarly, all that happened to him between those two events happened also in the present. Thus the present is the only significant tense in actuality. Moreover, let us not forget the fact that time is made of instants, which are so minute as to have no room, either for a past or for a future, but for the present alone. The next verse will tell us that even the present is unreal, being one of the notions of our mind as past and future are, acts of our memory. Good morning. If you've just joined us, I'm reading from 40 verses on reality by Ramana Maharshi. Do time and space exist apart from us? If we are the body, we are affected by time and space. But are we the body? We are the same now, then, and forever. Of course, time and space are mere concepts in us, because in our long journey in life we pass through multitudes of experiences. We have to conceive past, present and future in order to arrange them conveniently in their sequence of occurrence in our memory. Because we perceive multiplicity, we have to conceive a space in which to accommodate them, like the screen on which the cinematograph pictures are spread. Without a screen there can be no pictures. The screen on which the universe actually appears and moves is thus our own mind, from which it emanates as thoughts, either of external physical objects or of internal concepts, sensations, emotions, including the senses of time and space. Those who take themselves for the body take time to be the creator and destroyer of all things, and thus it inspires them with great fear of future calamities, of death, of loss, of fortune and position, or whatever it may be. Many of them consult astrologers to read the degrees of time and foretell events long in advance of their occurrence. To them, birth, young, old age and death, creation, preservation, dissolution, past, present and future, health and disease, prosperity and adversity all exist without a shadow of a doubt. They fall prey to time and its vagaries. The others, who know themselves to be pure spirit, are bodiless, timeless and spaceless, and the Bhagavan affirms they are thus free from the hallucinations of we alone are, time and space are not. We alone are, time and space are not. To those who have not realized the self, as well as to those who have, the body is I. To the former, the I is only of the size of the body, whereas to those who have realized the self within the body, the I shines without limits. This is the difference between the two. The jnani, the self-realized, like everybody else, refers to the body as I, whereas the others confine their I to the flesh and body, and to its height and breadth. The jnani takes his I to be the life which pervades the body, as well as the limitless space outside it. Realization is the direct and undubitable proof of this truth. To those who have realized the self, and to those who have not, the world is real. To the latter, its reality is confined to the spatial measurements of the world, whereas to the former it is formless and shines as the subterranean of the world. This is the difference between the two. The space which the world occupies is the limit of its reality to the ignorant, a jnani, but to the jnani it is the limitless subterranean of the world. Science tells us that space is not material, that it is not made of atoms and molecules, like the objects which occupy it, to be visible to the eye. The perception of space by the eye is the worst illusion men suffer. Space is a mental concept, i.e., it is a projection by the mind to make the reality of the world plausible. If space is a concept, so should be the objects that occupy it, notwithstanding their atoms and molecules. All the universes and galaxies in the cosmos are made of atoms and nothing else. But what are the atoms, after all, but the indestructible, absolute energy? The jnani experiences his energy as the pure intelligence that is himself. The absolute reality is thus absolute energy, as well as absolute consciousness, sat, as well as chit, omnipotent, omnipresent, as well as omniscient. the world as well as the creator and the seer of the world. Disputations as to which prevails over the other, fate or free will, are for those who have no knowledge of the self, which is the ground of both fate and free will. Those who have realized this ground are free from both. Will they be caught by them again? Fate or destiny is karma. Karma, like free will, is unintelligent and can thus affect only the unintelligent in man, namely the body, and not the intelligent being, who is the Lord of the body. When realization of this being is achieved, karma and free will have no feet to stand on, and will crumble to dust on their own accord. The scholars do not worry over whether destiny and free will affect the individual or his body, but argue about which of them dominates the other in its operation. Our own approach to this question is simple. We exercise our will freely and let karma take care of itself. Vashita Muni exhorts Rama to make constant efforts in his sadhana and forget all about the complexities of destiny. He compares karma and free will to two battling rams, of which the stronger will always win in the end. Thus, strong efforts will overcome destiny. Some theorists stretch themselves so far as to believe that even the exercise of the will is predestined. That is, destiny is always dominant, leaving no room for freedom of will. If they are right, then religion, ethical conduct, obedience to moral law, service of man and humane actions are wasted effort, and evil-doing will be on a par with virtuous deeds. Moreover, men would be no better than machines which produce what is put into them, or than animals which are not responsible for their actions, and thus not liable for punishment or reward. Fortunately, it is not so. The admission of punishment and reward, which is the fundamental condition in the operation of karma, inevitably leads to the admission of free will. Karma begins to operate only after the will has been exercised. The genesis is free will, not karma, which follows it like its shadow. Without seeing the self, the seeing of God is a mental image. Seeing the self is seeing God, they say. Completely losing the ego and seeing the self is finding God, for the self is not other than God. The great Western religions hold that question whether there is a God other than man. The great Western religions hold that the question whether there is God other than man is sacrilegious. The supremacy of God over man, they argue, is so self-evident that the very question is derogatory to God Almighty. Bhagavan answers the question in the negative, because whereas the Western theologians take man to be the merest dust, the corruptible body, Bhagavan takes him to be the spirit of life within the body, which is infinite and eternal. Those who have no experience of the self but claim to have seen God, Bhagavan asserts, have seen only their own mental picture of God, resembling their own physical picture more or less, having a shape, colour, size, etc., which God, the pure spirit, simply does not have. The scriptures declare that seeing the self is seeing God. Being single, how can one see one's own self? If oneself cannot be seen, how can God be? To be absorbed by God is to see him. God is the self, we said, but how to see one's own self, which has no second to perceive or reflect it? Here, seeing the self is knowing the self. the self being pure knowledge, itself the seer and itself the seen. Knower and known are thus one. Morning, Daniel. Morning, Ben. And the same being. Therefore, seeing God is being dissolved in God or self. Being single draws attention to the freedom of man from his upadis, which are anything but single with their koshas, organs, faculties, and their manifold qualities such as shape, size, colour, smell and taste. Therefore, to be himself, that is to be single man. The ego has to shed all these superfluities, which he has been mistaking for himself, and remain as consciousness in the heart. That is the true vision or true being of God. The Lord shines within the mind, illuminating it. Unless it turns inward and be fixed in the Lord, it is not possible for the mind to know him. Mind here is jiva, which working through its manas, the faculty of the lower intellect, perceives the world and remains always occupied with it. Being an intelligent knower, the jiva is not other than the Lord himself, but because it is in constant contact with the world, it can have no knowledge of him, or what is the same of itself. To have this knowledge, all it has to do is to turn its attention inward to the heart, where the Lord is seated. This is the same as renouncing the adjuncts mentioned in the last note. One last bit and then I'll leave it there. The body does not say I. In sleep no one admits he is not. The I emerging, all else emerges. Enquire with a keen mind whence this I rises. The body being insentient knows nothing about I and not I, yet the I persists with or without a body, in the waking state or in sleep or swoon, as the man who himself wakes, swoons and sleeps. When he wakes up, the whole world wakes up. When he sleeps, the whole world sleeps. To know the true nature of this perennial I, we have to conduct an inquiry into its source. Would anybody like to open up the space, ask any questions about what I've just read, if you followed it? If not, that's okay, we'll go into a meditation. Would anybody like to ask anything? Or open up the space for conversation about these things? Okay, let's take some time to do some meditation and have some silence. So if you want to focus on your breathing now, breathing into your belly, pushing your belly out as you breathe in and bringing your belly in as you breathe out, and breathing through the nose. Gentle breaths, everything softening with each breath, bringing yourself into this space, this sacred space that we've all created here. bringing yourself and your awareness to your body, to the breath connecting you with your body, with life, with God. The breath is the bridge between the body and God. The body and yourself. Breathing easily and gently, allowing any emotions, any feelings, any sensations that are happening to be. And if you've just joined us, we're going into a meditation now. Just be aware of any sensations, feelings, emotions, anything happening in the body. Staying with the breath. And whatever sensation is arising, be inquisitive about it. Go into it. If it feels a little bit overwhelming, or if you feel some restriction, if there's somewhere in your body that needs attention, you will know where that is. Your divine intelligence will guide you. Go to that place and feel into it. Feel what's happening. Be courageous. Be brave. Be inquisitive. Question what's happening. What is it? What does it feel like? What are the sensations? Go within and look into it. Remember the breath. Remember the bridge between you and yourself, God and the body. Maybe easier to do this with your eyes closed now. Just allowing everything around you, noticing the sounds, noticing where your body is, how does it feel? Taking your attention to your feet. Your feet are grounded, rooted, connected. Breathing easily, gently through the nose. Everything softening with each breath, letting go a little more. Feeling the energy. Noticing now the silence. Keep your attention on the silence. Allowing the waves of silence to move through you. To wash through you. Take a deep breath in. And as you breathe out, let go of any stale air in your lungs, breathing in through your mouth now. And you can make a sound if you need to. We'll do that 2 more times. Thank you for sharing this space, giving yourselves this space this morning. I'm going to ring the bell. Much love, many blessings. Have a beautiful, beautiful day. From my heart to yours.